Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we gotta dive into everything going down with this Terry McLaurin situation. Again, like I already said in previous videos, I will be doing why we need to pay Terry McLaurin, like an entire video just on that, where it's gonna have a lot of statistics and a lot of historical backing as to why we need to give him the money that he wants. We're gonna dive into a little bit of that today, and we're gonna take a look at some statistics, but for the most part, I'm just trying to catch y'all up on everything that's going down with Terry McLaurin missing OTAs, why he's missing OTAs, how far apart are they on a contract, is Terry McLaurin going to get fined by the Washington Commanders, and if so, how much? Also, other fan bases wanting them and trying to recruit him on Twitter, and other people still underrating him for no reason. And should we sign, tag, or trade him? What's the worst case scenario? What's best case scenario? All of that type of stuff, and exactly why we need to go ahead and race to get Terry McLaurin's deal done before Deebo Samuel's. We already saw how AJ Brown's contract affected the Terry McLaurin contract talks. The Deebo Samuel one can only make it worse. And of course, we got to compare Terry McLaurin's situation to other situations. First of all, previously from the Washington Commanders, like Jonathan Allen and guys like that, and also even like going all the way back to Albert Haynesworth. And on top of that, we also have to compare Terry McLaurin to current situations around the NFL, like Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, all of those guys. So we're doing a complete breakdown and catching all of y'all up on everything going down with Terry McLaurin. Again, I'm gonna have a separate video on exactly why we need to pay him, where I'm gonna have a bunch of advanced statistics and all kinds of stuff in there. We're gonna do a little bit of that in this video, but again, for the most part, we're just breaking down everything else. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, I'm almost done with all of the stuff I've been having to do outside of my YouTube channel. So I will be working on some film sessions for my channel members. I'm working on that why we need to pay Terry McLaurin video. And I'm also working on why our offensive line will be top 10, even potentially top 5 this year, even after losing Brandon Sheriff and Eric Flowers. So I'm working on all of that content for y'all. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Without further ado, man, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have already seen Wale tweet out the Commandovers, because like Landover, Maryland, Commandovers, please pay future Hall of Fame elite wide receiver. Please pay that man. Alright, so yesterday, this started with Nikki Javala tweeting out and reporting that talks between Commanders and Terry McLaurin's reps have continued per sources. While there's been some progress, they're still far apart, and as of now, things may change. McLaurin seems unlikely to show up for minicamp. He returned to Florida today, as in yesterday, to resume training for the season. Probably fishing a lot as well. And the next thing you know, Adam Schefter tweets out this morning at 10:01 a.m. Washington wide receiver Terry McLaurin does not plan to attend this week's mandatory minicamp. Per source, McLaurin is continuing to seek a contract extension consistent with other comparable wide receivers that recently signed. Again, we're going to dive into that. Until he has it, he will miss reps with new Washington quarterback Carson Wentz. And I think that's an important part right there. We're going to dive into everything in the situation, but let's pause real quick and talk about the fact that right now, Terry McLaurin is yet to catch a pass from new starting quarterback Carson Wentz. I mean, as of right now, of course, Terry McLaurin is wide receiver 1 on the depth chart when he does return. But as of today, from Carson Wentz's eyes and the guys he has chemistry with, Jahan Dotson is easily wide receiver 1. You can say Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, all of those guys are higher than Terry McLaurin right now because he's never thrown a ball to him. So he doesn't know the timing. He doesn't know exactly where Terry McLaurin wants the ball. We've seen through reps and through the past few weeks how Carson Wentz has gained a better rapport with Jahan Dotson, to where like when he's doing a route that requires him to like break outside or inside, the ball is exactly where it needs to be when it needs to be there and everything now. But at first it wasn't. So like, say worst case scenario, Terry McLaurin even holds out through training camp but comes back like week 1 regular season. It's going to be ugly for Terry McLaurin. There's going to be a lot of passes thrown behind him, in front of him, over him, too low, all kinds of stuff. First of all, just because Carson Wentz is fairly inconsistent. I guess, to be nice about it. I'm excited about him, and I hope he goes out there and balls out and looks like the top 10 talent quarterback that he is. Everything with him is just mental and consistency. But even just Terry McLaurin isolated, even if Carson Wentz is balling out and throwing perfect dimes to Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel and all of these guys, and even J.D. McKissic out of the backfield, hopefully some of that translates to Terry McLaurin. But I mean, he runs a different speed from these other guys. He runs a different type of route. It's just like a different nuance to his route running, all kinds of stuff, and I think that would throw off the timing. So now, of course, granted, you would hope, since Carson Wentz is so good at throwing to Jahan Dotson already, he can throw to Curtis Samuel, he can throw to all of these different types of guys. Hopefully Terry McLaurin can come in and it'll just be a seamless transition. But who knows? As of right now, Carson Wentz has never thrown a ball to Terry McLaurin, and I think that's something definitely noteworthy. Now, the one positive out of it is that Jahan Dotson is getting meaningful reps and targets right now. He's basically stepped up as the wide receiver one without Terry McLaurin there. And if Terry McLaurin were there, would Jahan Dotson be this far ahead in his development? So as of right now, it looks like we have two wide receiver ones when Terry McLaurin comes back, because Terry McLaurin hasn't been back. But hopefully he comes back very soon. Now, moving on, I think it's really interesting that Terry McLaurin is not here, because Ron Rivera just said last week, quote, "I expect all of our players to be here because it's mandatory," unquote. So I'm pretty sure Ron Rivera is not happy with Terry McLaurin missing practices, which takes me to the point that Nicky Javala tweeted this out. It's up to NFL teams if they want to find a player for missing minicamp. Per the CBA, the max they could find them is $15,515 for the first missed day, $31,030 for the second day, and $46,540 for the third day. So if he misses all three, he could be fined up to $93,085. And of course, I mean, that's chump change. Like, he's not really worried about that. Plus, I don't think it would be smart for the Washington Commanders to do that. Again, it's up to them. It's not like it's automatic and it's just handed down by the NFL. The team chooses whether or not to find somebody for missing mandatory mini camps and training camps and things like that. So if we do, it's clear that like Ron Rivera and company decided to do it, and if they do, that's only going to hurt the situation and only anger them more and make them more likely to want to leave the team, or more likely to ask for more money, because basically like, y'all trying me now. It just wouldn't be a good idea. Leave that alone, man. Please leave that alone. And then Nicky Javala also came out and said today that so far, any contract talks with Terry McLaurin, any progress has been minimal. So, I mean, there's talks, but again, they're far apart, and any progress has been very minimal. And Al Galdi pointed out a good thing. This is really interesting. The only two no-shows for Washington mandatory minicamp in recent years were Albert Haynesworth in 2010 and Trent Williams in 2019. And he said, "I'm not saying Terry McLaurin's situation is as toxic as those other two, but him no-showing the Commanders mandatory minicamp is a big deal." And I think that's really interesting right there, because this is the first time under Ron Rivera since he's been here for the Commanders that a player has missed mandatory minicamps. I mean, despite all of the chaos that's been going on with this organization, Terry McLaurin is the first player to skip out on mandatory minicamps. Remember how upset and how much people were panicking over Chase Young missing OTAs last year and things like that? That was OTAs. That wasn't even mandatory minicamp. So this situation is a little bit different. It's a little bit more dire, but as a fan, me personally, I think they will get it done. John Keim, Ian Rappaport, a lot of guys that are close to the situation feel like it will get done, even though right now it's far apart. And me as a fan, I'm not worrying until training camp. I don't have any inside sources, so I don't know if it will get done, if it will not. But until training camp comes, I'm not too worried about it. And then so, as far as Terry McLaurin potentially sitting out and why he should, there's been a report by Matt Lombardo that there's a feeling among some that Washington is trying to avoid paying Terry McLaurin premium money that wide receivers have been getting this offseason. So basically, the Washington Commanders are just BSing right now. They just playing with Terry's name. And I really hope it's not one of those situations where we're not willing to go up an extra $1 or $2 million per year. Kind of like the Eric Flowers situation. Now, it ended up working out and he ended up coming back, and then we just ended up letting him go again. But like, we let him go to Miami because we weren't willing to pay that extra $1 to $3 million per year that they were. Do not let that happen with Terry McLaurin. I don't care what you're willing to do. If what he wants is $1 to $2 million per year over that, you do that, man. I'm sorry. That's going to be such petty money in the future. And also, I think Terry McLaurin going back to why he should sit out. It's just not worth it. I mean, find him if you want to, whatever, even though I think it would be a terrible idea. But right now, practicing, he has everything to lose. With no contract in the works, no contract signed, the only thing that can happen is he end up tearing an ACL or getting some like type of terrible injury, and then that takes his negotiation leverage all the way down. He ends up getting way less money than he should, because assuming if it would like to be like an ACL or Achilles or something, he would end up missing this entire season. So that would definitely hurt his contract leverage. So I just don't think it's worth it for him to even come here until the contract situation gets done. The only thing he can do is mess up his money coming to practices right now. Training camp, different. But mandatory mini camps, even though it is mandatory, I mean, what can he do to go out there and make them want to pay him more money? I mean, a one-handed catch, he's already done that in NFL games. There's nothing he can do in practices to increase how much money they're willing to pay him, unless like Carson Wentz just has unmatched chemistry. Nobody can cover them. But even then, all he has is he has nothing to gain and everything to lose by going to mandatory minicamps right now. I'm not gonna lie. And then Washington situations for comparison, well, we already talked about Albert Haynesworth and Trent Williams, but as far as them paying guys recently, they have gotten deals done, even though a lot of them have been very cheap, like JD McKissic and I guess Logan Thomas to a little bit more of an extent. And then of course you have like Jonathan Allen, who is the fourth highest paid defensive tackle right now, getting paid around $18 million per year. He's behind Aaron Donald, DeForest Buckner, and Chris Jones, and then he's just like barely ahead of Vita Vea right now, which I think is a good spot for him. And I mean, we'll see if that's a good comparison for Terry McLaurin, because I think Terry McLaurin is a top 10 receiver, but I also don't think he's necessarily the best wide receiver in the NFL, at least not yet. We'll see what he does when he finally has a good quarterback. A lot of these top receivers, when you look at the top 10, Terry McLaurin has had the worst quarterback situation easily. I mean, if you look at the top 10, even if you go to like the top 20, you can still probably say Terry McLaurin has had the worst quarterback situation of any of the receivers that even belong in the conversation for the top 20. And so, you know, we'll see this upcoming season. Hopefully Carson Wentz provides some stability and some explosion to where we can truly see how great Terry McLaurin can be. Maybe he goes for like 1,300, 1,500 yards maybe. We'll see. And then also, I mean, now he potentially has other receivers next to him that can take some attention away from the defense. But to go back to my point, I think Terry McLaurin is somewhere like in the top 10, top 15 wide receivers. But of course, when the market resets, you just got to pay the guy the top dollar. It's kind of like paying for the premium. You're not necessarily paying for Terry McLaurin, you're just paying for the going rate of wide receivers at this point in the market, in this point in the off season, all of that type of stuff. So we'll see, man. And remember, as far as Jonathan Allen goes, they paid him like the morning of training camp, so maybe they'll wait that long to get Terry McLaurin paid. And also, really noteworthy with the Jonathan Allen situation, even though they didn't pay him to like the morning of training camp, he still showed up to mandatory mini camps. So I guess you could say that they were negotiating in good faith with Jonathan Allen, and Jonathan Allen felt comfortable enough with the contract talks and where they were at to where he was like, okay, I'll show up to mandatory mini camps. I mean, it looks like they're trying to get a deal done. I think they're operating in good faith. We should be fine. And then they got it done the morning of. But I think with Terry McLaurin, the fact that he's missing out on mandatory mini camps and he's like the face of the franchise, he says all of the right things, he does all of the right things. This is the first time I've ever seen him even have a little bit of a rebellious bone since he's been here. So to me, that sounds like the contract negotiations are not going anywhere near where Terry McLaurin would like it to go. Again, Jonathan Allen was at mandatory mini camps even though his deal didn't get done the morning of training camps. So the fact that Terry McLaurin isn't here shows that maybe they are extremely far apart and this situation is worse than we think. I hope not, though. Now, looking at other situations for comparison. First of all, let's start with the fact that the Rams just have infinite cap space. I don't know how they do it. I mean, Aaron Donald, the Cooper Cup, getting Bobby Wagner, getting Allen Robinson. I have no idea how they're doing it, and I'm pretty sure they're still going to find a way to bring OBJ back, probably sign another random key free agent out of nowhere right before the season starts sometime during training camp. I have no idea how they're doing it. We need to figure out who their capologist is and pay him to tutor ours, because, man, please help us, even if we got to sign him to like a 5-day contract to figure everything out and plan like the next 10 years for us cap space wise. Whatever you got to do, man, please get us what the Rams got. And looking at Deebo Samuel and DK Metcalf situations in comparison between those three, including Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel is the only one who's showing up to mandatory minicamps. DK Metcalf isn't, of course Terry McLaurin isn't. And it's interesting because Deebo Samuel has been the most outspoken and the most blatant, letting everybody know he's not happy with his current contract situation. And he even showed up to mandatory minicamp. So maybe their contract talks are moving along fine. But like I mentioned in the intro, Deebo Samuel gets his deal done before Terry McLaurin does. That's only going to raise the price for Terry McLaurin's, because I'm pretty sure Deebo Samuel's is going to be something somewhere similar to AJ Brown's, maybe even more. So you need to get that deal done before Deebo Samuel does. But again, just like with Jonathan Allen showing up to mandatory minicamps, with Deebo Samuel showing up to mandatory minicamps for the 49ers, it sounds like they believe that their respective teams were operating in good faith. Deebo Samuel is willing to show up to mandatory minicamps probably because he feels like the contract talks are going very well, whereas DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin probably feel the opposite. So I'm really worried about the fact that we're just going to wake up one random morning with probably within the next couple of weeks and see that Deebo Samuel signs a big time extension or something. I don't know. I'm really worried about that. Again, if we let the 49ers sign Deebo Samuel to a contract before Terry McLaurin does, it can get very ugly for us. Price will probably only go up. And then even just outside of the receivers, you have Kyler Murray, who was deleting posts from his Instagram, and it was like 3 different phases of turmoil and drama, and he's at mandatory minicamp. You have Lamar Jackson at mandatory minicamp. It's just a lot going on. It's crazy that Terry McLaurin isn't when all of these other guys are. Now to look at some interesting stats. Since entering the league in 2019, tweeted out by Jeremy Fowler, Terry McLaurin has averaged 1,030 yards per season while working with 8 different starting quarterbacks within 3 years. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke, Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum, Colt McCoy, and Garrett Gilbert. And even technically Logan Thomas at quarterback for a couple of plays. But I think the worst part about this list, the part that's really underrated, it's not even like we went from one quarterback to the next, to the next, to the next. No, there were times where quarterback A played and started, and then quarterback B would start, and then we'd go back to quarterback A, then we go to quarterback C, now we're back to quarterback A. So it was just never consistency. Like, it was as chaotic as you can get with fitting in 8 quarterbacks within 3 seasons. Like, literally as chaotic as it gets. One guy would start, then another guy would start, and then the previous guy would end up starting again. I mean, there was no continuity at all. He deserves some praise just for that. I know you're not supposed to pay guys for what they did. You're supposed to pay them for what they're about to do. Well, first of all, what Terry McLaurin's about to do is about to be crazy. First of all, let's just go ahead and get that out the way. But you gotta pay Terry McLaurin for what he's had to deal with, just at least a little bit. Just top it off a little bit. Pay him under the table something for what he's had to deal with and how he's still been able to accomplish great things. And then the fact that he's so severely underrated because of the quarterback situation and no fault to his own, it just really sucks. And then also you have this route tree and this success thing right here, and just the fact that he put up back-to-back 1,000 yard season, seeing 130 plus targets. I mean, I think last year there was not a single other player on the team with at least 400 receiving yards. I think JD McKissick was second with like 300 and something. I mean, there's just been no threat opposite of him as well. Even ignoring the bad quarterback play, there's been no other threats in the receiving game, whether it be tight end, receiver, whatever, because Logan Thomas can't stay healthy. It's just like, man, what he's been able to do, what he's been able to produce. Again, looking at this route tree, this is ridiculous. This is like an elite route tree right here. Just to let you know, if you go look at other players' success by routes from 2021, Terry McLaurin is up there, honestly, like in the top 5. And even Madden loves Terry McLaurin. I mean, as much as we get hated on when it comes to Madden ratings and stuff like that, as far as the Washington Commanders go, just throughout history, period, Terry McLaurin has been finalized as a 92 overall with a superstar X Factor in Madden 23. That came out in a leak today. And I just think, even if Madden sees it, we gotta see guarantee it, because we get hated on. Players be way lower in overalls than they should be, and the fact that Terry McLaurin's a 92 tells you everything you need to know. And I think honestly he could end up being higher than that by the end of the season, but we'll see. And continuing on with the underrated thing, which Jordan Reed pointed out, the draft analyst, because Dan Orlovsky came out with a list and said #1 wide receivers change how defenses play an offense. On Mondays, defensive coordinators sit down and ask, what are we going to do with blank? And then he said those wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp, D-Hop, DK Metcalf, and Deebo Samuel. And Terry McLaurin obviously led off the list. First of all, let's get this out the way. The DK Metcalf is better than Terry McLaurin narrative has to die. We just gonna have to go ahead and kill that already. And then even just beyond that, no AJ Brown. And then the fact that like we haven't seen Michael Thomas really play for real since 2019. So there's a lot of things I have wrong with this list. And Will Blackman brought up a good point, because he said, unless you sat down and interviewed current defensive coordinators, I don't know about this list. He said Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, and Tyreek Hill might be the only ones that cause serious problems. They can ruin a game due to their versatility. If you have a top 3 QB, that plays a big part as well. A lot depends. And I mean, he brings up interesting points there, and I feel like the most notable point is the fact that Terry McLaurin doesn't have these great quarterbacks that all of these other guys have. Now, granted, when Michael Thomas was really out there balling, he was doing it out there with Taysom Hill, so he deserves a little bit of credit for that. But a lot of these other guys have future Hall of Famer quarterbacks, and Terry McLaurin has had people we're going to forget about within 30 years. And then with all of that underrated stuff going on, you have people of fan bases, pretty much every fan base I saw on Twitter, trying to recruit him. You see Terry McLaurin is a future Patriot tweets everywhere. You see the Packers, you see Lions, you see literally everybody, even teams that already have 2 or 3 really good receivers. Like, hey, we'll take Terry McLaurin if y'all playing. It's bad. I mean, just imagine if Aaron Rodgers right now, you could say the biggest weakness easily of the Green Bay Packers right now is the wide receiver group. You give Aaron Rodgers, Terry McLaurin, man. I mean, just imagine what Bill Belichick with New England could do with a Terry McLaurin. It's scary, man. Like, other teams really value Terry McLaurin. They seem like they value him more than we do, and that is what scares me. And then you also have the Pat McAfee show. They talked about it for a few minutes. The Butler guy talking about how he would love it if Terry McLaurin went back home to Indianapolis. He's from Indianapolis, like born and raised and everything. And Pat McAfee was super excited about it. He was like, man, please, whatever we got to do, please get us Terry McLaurin. I mean, other fan bases out here stressing as much as we are. They want him just as bad as we do. It's crazy. But even just beyond that, with how much other teams want him, I'm pretty sure Terry McLaurin sees that stuff, and he probably, I mean, what if he's looking around like, do I really even want to come back here? Like, I'm gonna overcharge y'all because I don't really want to be here for real? Is that how he's looking at it? I hope not. I hope he wants to be a lifelong Commander. Brandon Sheriff kept saying he wanted to be, but never truly wanted to be. And so we'll see with Terry McLaurin. Hopefully he's different, but like with all of these other teams with more sure, more potent quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, and all of these guys, and I mean, even some people consider Matt Ryan an upgrade over Carson Wentz. Is he looking around the league like, man, I mean, if the Washington Commanders don't want to pay me top dollar, if I'm gonna get cheaped out of some dollars anyway, a couple of millions, I prefer to go somewhere else than to be here. But I don't know. Hopefully not, man. I really hope that's not how he's thinking, because I think he does at least one more year with this offense. He'll see how potent it can be with Carson Wentz and all of these other weapons around him, a top 5 potential offensive line, like I already said. So the past has been terrible, but I think the future is much brighter. I mean, of course, by default, it has to be brighter, but I think honestly, he'll go out there and look like a Pro Bowler. He'll probably make some Pro Bowls and things like that with the way this team is currently set up and what it's looking like in the future. So hopefully he just gives us another chance, man, please. And now, should we sign him? Should we trade him? Should we franchise tag him? Hopefully we don't end up in a similar situation like Kirk Cousins, double franchise tag, left. Brandon Sheriff, double franchise tag, left. No trade, no nothing, just leaving. I mean, of course, there's the question of, do you just let him go and draft another receiver? You found him in the 3rd. We just drafted Jahan Dotson in the 1st, and he looks like he's going to be really good immediately. It's not even going to take any real development. I mean, wide receivers are coming out more NFL ready, and you can get them in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round. And so is it worth it paying Terry McLaurin $25 million per year plus rather than just getting a rookie for a very cheap deal? I still want to pay Terry McLaurin, but that is an interesting question. I think it's obvious that we should pay Terry McLaurin and not go that route. but there is an argument to be made for sure. Also, I'm not really worried about him getting traded. I highly doubt we trade him. I think if anything, he'll just probably end up getting franchise tagged, worst case scenario. I see the trade scenario as like the least likely, and I think beyond that, franchise tag is the worst case scenario. But I think also franchise tagging him sends a bad message. First of all, not paying him at all. I mean, if you're talking about a guy that did everything you ask him to do on and off the field, I mean, just the complete model citizen, face of the franchise, the guy that puts an offense on his back, a team on the back, high character guy, locker room guy. It's a guy that you drafted in the 3rd round and developed, and he developed way sooner than you expected. He's out here making everybody else look better than they actually are as coaches because he's just that amazing of a player. I mean, when you look at the fact that Terry McLaurin is this good and was drafted in the 3rd round, it makes everybody else around him look like, okay, maybe the Washington Commanders organization knows what they're doing as far as scouting goes. So, like, Terry McLaurin has done everything completely right up until the point that he's basically been skipping out on mandatory minicamps, and again, I feel like he should. I wouldn't be here if I were him for the reasons I've already stated. Just like if he were to get hurt, that could only hurt his opportunity of getting as much money as he wants. But again, Terry McLaurin has done everything right on and off the field. So if you can't reward this guy with a long-term contract, who can you? So that's just going to send a really bad message to the players and the guys in the locker room, because they're going to look at Terry McLaurin like, first of all, I'm not as good as he is on the field in my respective position, whether I'm a corner, a defensive lineman, quarterback, offensive lineman, whatever. I'm not as good at my position as Terry McLaurin is at receiver, and I'm definitely not as just 100% perfect in interviews and off the field and high character as he is. So if they're not going to pay him big money, what am I even doing here? I'm out as soon as I can. As soon as my contract's up, I'm going somewhere else to get paid. So that's a terrible message to send to the rest of the team if we don't get it done. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I really hope we get Terry McLaurin paid. I'm not worried about it right now, and I'm also a little optimistic, but let me know how y'all feel about the Terry McLaurin situation so far. What's the temperature of the room? Do y'all feel like we won't get it done? Do you feel like we'll fold the bag? Are you optimistic like me? Are you not worrying about it? Or are you just straight up panicking right now? So let me know all of that in the comment section. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.